Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Morning.
We are here for the confirmation hearings for Gregory Clifford for the position of Law Director. Madam Clerk, will you call the roll?
Calling the roll, Ms. Simon.
On her way.
Mr. Greenspan.
Here.
Mr. Miller. Mr. Brady.
Present.
Mr. Germana.
Here.
Mr. Gallagher.
Here.
Strawn.
Here.
Ms. Conwell.
Here.
Mr. Jones. Ms. Conley.
Here.
Mr. Rogers.
Here.
We're here. We have a quorum present. We're here for a confirmation hearing for Mr. Clifford, who has been nominated to the position of Law Director for the county. This is an Article 5 appointment, which means that it has to be confirmed by the council within 30 days. Mr. Clifford was nominated on February the 9th, so we have 30 days into which to consider this confirmation. He is appointed pursuant to Section 5.06 of the County Charter, which reads that the Law Director shall be the legal advisor to and representative of the Cuyahoga County Executive and County Council. The Director of Law shall have at least 5 years' experience in advising or representing political subdivisions in Ohio. I should point out Mr. Clifford has supplied us with a resume, but we have asked of every other nominee who has a legal requirement or statutory requirement to supply us with a certified copy. So we all know that you are a lawyer, but just for the record, if you would supply us supply the clerk with something from the Supreme Court showing us your status as a lawyer. The council has thus far confirmed 3 persons under Article 5, Sheriff Reed, Clerk First, and Ms. Bonnie Tiwan, Director of Public Works. The procedure this morning is the procedure that we have followed in other confirmation hearings. We first take public comment, which we limit to 2 minutes. We sometimes are a little bit more generous with that. And then we allow the nominee to speak, and then we allow council to ask questions. And we have established the rule that we limit the questions to 3 questions on the first round, and then we go back around. I see that we have a number of people checked in. I'm not sure who's running Cleveland Municipal Court here. We have all the people here. However, it's now a little after 10. Some of us have some other commitments this afternoon, so close to 12-ish we'll probably be breaking. If we don't complete the hearings, we will continue them into next week. So, Mr. Clifford, we're going to ask you to vacate that seat because we have a number of people who have signed in and would like to address this. Okay? All right, first, Judge Ronald B. Adrian from the Cleveland Municipal Court. Have a seat, and we will give you a generous 2 minutes.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And thank you for the opportunity to address the council. I really see this as a historic occasion and a historic appointment. Your gain is our loss. We have been blessed to have Gregory Clifford serve as our chief magistrate for a number of years. He's been with the court for over 24 years and served as various capacities as magistrate and as chief magistrate during that time frame. He is, for me, my good right arm. When I need information, when I need counsel, he's the person that I turn to about the court's rules, about how we interface with the Supreme Court, how we address matters that come before us that have to do with anything legal. The chief magistrate is the person that we look to for that purpose. He is the ongoing resident legal scholar. He has provided us with good information, good training. He is an excellent person. He is honest. He is fair. I believe that you couldn't have done better. And although I am crying in my beer to send him to you, I think that the county advances because of the fact that he will be sitting in that seat.
All right, thank you. All right. Donald C. Williams. introduced to everyone as Corky.
Good morning, and thank you for this
Morning.
opportunity.
Yeah, give us your name and address for the record, I guess.
It's Donald C. Williams, 1370 Ontario Street. I am an attorney, resident of Cleveland, Ohio, for my high school years, and now Cuyahoga County. I appreciate the opportunity to speak briefly with you and tell you that I'm especially honored to see how you've gone through this process and how you respect the community.
That's Judge Adrian's buzzer, so keep going.
Okay. What we really were looking for, and I'm a representative from the Norman S. Minor Bar Association, is the sensitivity that Greg has to bring to this office. Sensitivity and years of experience of residents' community. Those are some stellar qualities that we are so pleased to see that you've taken into consideration. We know that he's going to do the kind of job that you have requested of him. His experience legally in terms of the municipal court and as well as a private practicing attorney have shown that. And looking at his resume, you know also that his community organizations have brings with him a certain another level of sensitivity. Sensitivity and the level and the ability to cooperate with the county in bringing what we need in terms of level of that legal expertise. Thank you, and good luck.
All right, thank you. We note the arrival of Ms. Simon. And Mr. Miller and Mr. Jones, so we have a full complement. All right, Charles L. Patton.
Morning,
Judge Patton, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Judge. It's nice seeing this council seated here today. Mr. Fitzgerald, good morning. I am honored to be here to talk about my old friend, Greg Clifford. And when I say old, I mean going back to elementary school. He is one of my oldest and dearest friends. Over the years and in the playground, he gave me good counsel. At Ohio University, he gave me good counsel. And as our law director in the city of Cleveland Municipal Court, he also gave me good counsel. When we have questions and need some analysis of tricky legal issues, Greg has a calm head, and you can trust him. I've trusted him for years. This week in the New York Times, I read a story about Ronald Ferguson, graduated from John F. Kennedy High School. The reporter said he's one of the most knowledgeable persons in the field of education in this country, a PhD teacher at Harvard. And it's nice to read stories about our friends who aren't in trouble. And we've had enough trouble in this county. So I'm kind of glad that Mr. Fitzgerald has taken the helm and moving things in a good direction. This council is here, honorable council, because I know most of you. We are like the Cuyahoga County family. So congratulations to you for choosing my buddy. He'll be your buddy soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, Judge Michael Ryan.
Good morning.
Morning.
I am privileged to be here this morning and on behalf of Gregory Clifford, who's currently our chief magistrate, but hopefully won't be in that position any longer. I was actually upset when I heard about his ascension to this particular position or the opportunity for this position, because I've known Greg for 18 years. He was the first attorney that actually approached me when I was at a reception for minority law students. And from that time until now, he has not changed. His intellect hasn't changed. His humility hasn't changed. His approachability has not changed. He has been a mentor to me. He was a great boss for me, and now he was a great employee as well. And it's unusual that you get the opportunity to work for somebody and then have them turn around and work for you. And as Judge Adrian has said, and I'm pretty sure the sentiment will be from everybody who speaks on his behalf today from Cleveland Municipal Court, it is going to be the county's gain and our sincere loss when he is appointed as law director for the county. He's going to bring a lot of legal expertise for the county, but also, as I said, his humility is probably more important than anything else, because he doesn't see himself as someone who sits high up and is not receptive to different ideas from individuals. He is a great manager, especially when you have to manage egos of lawyers. I think he's done a phenomenal job of that with the magistrate's department. We have a number of talented lawyers in the magistrate's office, and he has a way of making people all. Can I get one more second?
Keep going.
Make sure that they all work together. I think if he is not appointed here, that the Miami Heat may want to hire him, because he does such a great job of bringing talented people together for one cause, and that was to make the magistrate's department the best department in the state and maybe even the country. And because the magistrate's department did such an excellent job, it made the court look great. So I would imagine that he'll do the same thing for the county's law department. Thank you.
I don't know about that comment about the Miami Heat. That may have tarnished your. That was a little sorry. Okay. All right. Thank you, Judge. All right, Judge Emanuela Groves.
Madam President.
Morning.
Good morning, council members. Again, I am Judge Emanuela Groves. I have been on the Cleveland Municipal Court now for 10 years. Early on in my election and being a judge on the bench, I have probably pretty much a reputation for being a stickler for rules, and I was very quickly assigned to chair the Rules Committee, and I've done that basically for most of my 10 years on the bench. I have worked very closely with Magistrate Clifford, and I have been very impressed with his ability to manage not only people but tasks. Many people may think the municipal court is like certainly we are in terms of our jurisdiction, a low-level court, but we deal with issues that other governmental entities deal with because you deal with also the process. So yes, our jurisdiction may be low in terms of dollar amount and ability to hear certain cases, but you review the process and the procedure as you would the same for other cases. And Magistrate Clifford has been instrumental when we have legal issues. It goes through his department. He oversees the handling of those issues, and I've just really been impressed with his professionalism, his ability to deal with issues of dispute and really to manage people. And he has to deal not only with the magistrates but also the ego of 12 judges, and that can be very challenging. And even if a comment is made, even during our Rules Committee, if I may question how a judge may assess how certain matters should be handled, he says, well, that's the way they would like to do it. So he really does know how to deal with people and to deal with tasks, and I recommend him highly, and I'm sure that you will be very pleased with this performance and his ability to not only work with individuals but also his ability to get the job done. Thank you very much for your time and consideration.
Thank you. That is the extent of the public comment that I have. No one else has signed in. I just would like to point out at the conclusion of the confirmation hearings, whether it's today or at another date, if we don't conclude today, it has been our procedure that we entertain a motion to refer the nominee to the entire council at a regular meeting for consideration for confirmation. So we only refer for consideration at a regular meeting at the conclusion of our hearings. All right, Mr. Clifford, give you an opportunity, and we don't put the buzzer on you. We don't put the time on you. So.
Good morning. Madam President, honorable members of council, thank you for allowing me this opportunity to present my qualifications to you. I also want to thank the judges of the Cleveland Municipal Court for sacrificing their time for coming down to share with you their perspective of me. These dedicated elected officials and I share in common a personal commitment to provide the highest quality public service for the residents and businesses of our community. Our court motto is public service with pride. I am a lifelong resident of Cuyahoga County who grew up in the Glenville neighborhood and attended public schools. As a teenager, my first job was working as a key boy at Forest Hill Swimming Pool. My enjoyment of the water and desire to help others led me to become a lifeguard and subsequently a water safety instructor. This provided me with an opportunity to teach children safe and effective swimming skills each summer during my college while I worked to help pay for my education. I received my bachelor's degree from Ohio University with a major in biology. Although I was certified to teach, I decided to venture into the business world after college. I sold insurance and mutual funds, started an income tax preparation business, and dove into the entertainment promotion business before deciding to go to law school. During my third year at Cleveland Marshall College of Law, I worked as a legal intern at the Greater Cleveland Regional Transit Authority. Upon obtaining my Juris Doctorate and passing the Ohio bar exam, I worked for the legendary John T. Corrigan as an assistant Cuyahoga County prosecutor in the criminal division. Consistent with the approved standards in the prosecutor's office, I began a part-time civil practice at that time. In an effort to once again find success in business, I began a full-time general practice of law after leaving the prosecutor's office. The freedom of self-employment was exciting and at times very lucrative, but the inconsistency in cash flow became stressful as I attempted to support a family and to pay a mortgage. Then, in 1986, I learned of a referee's position with the Cleveland Municipal Court, and having been employed there ever since. Although I came to the court as an experienced trial attorney, I have learned so much more about people and the application of the law. Having both prosecuted and defended individuals accused of crime, I loved being in the position of listening to and considering the merits of all sides to a dispute and rendering a decision that was fair and unbiased, which brought justice to and for the parties. As magistrates, we are not the judges who have been elected to carry out justice, but we have been selected by those judges to represent them in the courtroom and decide cases based upon their substantive and procedural merit. The magistrates in my department have been authorized by the judges, pursuant to the rules of procedure set forth by the Supreme Court of Ohio, to handle all of the small claims cases, traffic and criminal misdemeanor arraignments, default judgment cases, garnishment proceedings, post-judgment motions, exemption hearings on levies, replevins, receiverships, contempt proceedings, bond forfeiture hearings, 12-point suspension appeals, administrative license suspension appeals, non-compliance suspension appeals, requests for limited driving privileges, parking violations bureau appeals, cognovid notes, requests for temporary protection orders, and other civil and criminal motions, along with judges' personal docket, civil trials, and criminal proceedings. Most of our magistrates have experience as assistant law directors or assistant prosecutors. With an average annual volume of processing over 200,000 cases, the Cleveland Municipal Court is one of the busiest in the state. Traffic-related offenses account for over 60% of the entire docket, and most of those end up being driving without a driver's license or driving under suspension. Defaults and small claims account for the next largest volume of case types. At a ratio of approximately 7-to-1, magistrates handle the lion's share of the workload in the court. Small claims court is the people's court. Parties to disputes up to $3,000 can bring their issues to court without the aid of an attorney and receive a fair result regardless of their age, race, gender, religion, socioeconomic status, or nationality. Our mission is to ably serve the public with courtesy, dignity, and respect. As the chief magistrate, like a law director, I manage a staff of professionals that include attorneys, law clerks, and support staff. We aim to hire the best qualified candidates and give them the tools necessary and rely on their expertise to perform their duties. In addition to the continuing legal education credits required to maintain their professional licenses, we provide in-house training and we meet regularly to discuss various legal issues and changes in laws and procedures. We strive to continually improve our skills and our professionalism. As the team leader, when there is a conflict of opinions, it is my job to decide what our official position will be. To accommodate the needs of the court for planned and unplanned substitutions, all of our magistrates have been trained to be responsible for handling both civil and criminal work. In developing the parameters for our new computerized case management system, we assured that functioning was in compliance with state and local laws. Upon discovering conflicts with state statutes and local codified ordinances, I advised the city law director of the problem so that the ordinance could be updated for consistency. I staffed the court's rules committee, providing advice to the judges on appropriate changes for our local rules of practice and procedure, and assure that the published document is correct. In addition to providing legal opinions and recommendations to the judges, my staff and I also provide guidance and advice to the Civil and Criminal Division of the Office of the Clerk of Courts and the various departments of the court. These include the Foreign Language Interpreters Unit, the Probation Department, the Bailiffs Department, the Central Scheduling Department, the Jury Commission, and the Court Reporters. I helped to develop an ethics training workshop for all court employees in 2009. My staff and I have also worked to provide assistance and advice to outside agencies, like the Cleveland Police Department, the Prosecutor's Office, our website vendor, the House of Corrections, Court Community Service, and Counsel for the BMV. We also developed a partnership with the Department of Public Safety to obtain a grant to start our traffic intervention program. Being sensitive to the needs and real-life concerns of the people we serve, we have developed user-friendly brochures and information packets to help the diverse group of pro se litigants navigate the court system. We also worked with large collection law firms and the Legal Aid Society to establish a common set of guidelines that accommodates the needs of the court, the plaintiffs, and the defendants. Upon completion of the project, I drafted an article for the Ohio Association of Magistrates to show our colleagues across the state how they could handle and resolve the same issues that we were facing. Being in the largest municipal court, courts across the state frequently look to us for guidance as to how we handle certain affairs and matters, and we have always been a leader in setting the path for how courts across Ohio should function. I serve our professional association as the Municipal Court Practice Area Chair, a board member, and the first vice president. I serve on the Ohio Judicial Conference Criminal Law and Procedure Committee. I teach for the Ohio Judicial College and assist in planning courses for judges and magistrates. I have presented a workshop on access to justice and fairness in the courts at the Judicial Conference of the 8th Judicial District, where I am a life member. I have also served as the sole attorney on the East Cleveland Public Library Board of Trustees for 13 years. I believe that my professional experiences serving the judges of the Cleveland Municipal Court, serving my colleagues, and serving my community clearly shows my qualifications and ability to serve you well as Cuyahoga County's Law Director. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clifford, for your comments, Madam President. I appreciate the background that you bring to us today, Mr. Clifford, but I did not hear anything in regards to advice to municipalities in the 5 years of working with to do anything in regards to drafting legislation to help create that background. Could you explain to me where I'm missing that as far as in your background, your resume?
Sir, there is no experience that I have drafting legislation. I believe that the language of the charter describing the duties and the qualifications of the law director says advise or represent political subdivisions. I have been working for the Cleveland Municipal Court, which is a political subdivision, for the past 24 years as a magistrate, representing the judges and advising them, specifically as chief magistrate, being the chief legal advisor of the court. But no, I have not been involved in drafting legislation.
Okay. And as far as your professional background, as far as from a legal standpoint, it sounds very impressive in that respect. Have you been involved at all in advising even though you didn't draft any, have you been involved at all in advising and putting together structures at all for the background for anybody in regards to legislation, or what it takes to put forth a recommendation from, like perhaps in this case, the county executive is going to recommend legislation to this body. This body is going to recommend needs to have things of that nature. Is there any place where I could find where you've done anything of that nature?
Well, my advice on legislation has probably been to the effect of analyzing it after it's already been passed and how it affects the court and how it should be implemented. I've worked with the Ohio Judicial Conference Criminal Law and Procedure Committee looking at proposed legislation that's coming through the General Assembly as to its impact on courts, and was participated in advising the General Assembly on what modifications would work best for making the implementation of legislation work. But I have not been on the inside actually drafting legislation, working for the court.
Nor the advising side, to an executive or anything of that nature?
Well, we advise the judges on the legislation and the impact that it has on the court and how to implement it as it affects the court.
Okay. I'll reserve questions later.
Ms. Simon may have to leave, so I'm going to take her out of order, okay? Is that all right with you?
I'll yield to
Yeah.
Ms. Simon.
All right, Ms. Simon.
Thank you very much, Madam President. I'm in between court hearings myself. Thank you very much for coming today. I've been able, and I had the opportunity to serve as a mayor's court magistrate, as a juvenile court diversion magistrate, and I've been on the city council for 12 years, and now I'm sitting here. I can tell you for sure that my experience serving as the magistrate and a mayor's court magistrate is much different than being in a legislative body and dealing with the issues that we face day to day as legislators. So I'm wondering what plans you have to, I don't want to say get up to speed, but to immerse yourself in our daily world, to get up to speed on legislation, city issues, which impacts what we do here at the county. So do you have plans to get up to speed?
My plan when taking on something new is to delve into it, become totally familiar with it, so I'm prepared to act accordingly.
In what way? I mean, law director is much different than in this venue than it is what you've been dealing with. So is there anything in plan to understand this different minutia that we experience here? Anything specific?
Well, I think my experience in working with the law has trained me to be able to understand what I read and to move forward on what's necessary as far as planning to make the next step or the proper recommendation that's needed for the situation. So I believe that I'm able to take on that task and handle it effectively. Although I have not actually done that in the past, I believe that my skills are transferable.
Good morning, Mr. Clifford.
Morning.
One of the roles the law director has under the new charter is to also be legal counsel for the county council and advisor on these issues for the county council as well. Would like to hear your thoughts on how you would represent this body and how you would interact with this body as a law director.
Well, I think that's one of the primary duties is to advise and represent the council. And the council is proposing legislation. I think it's necessary to have proper research on the situation behind the legislation, the need for the legislation, and come up with the appropriate language to make sure that the purpose of the legislation is met and that we can look and see that, you know, if there's loopholes and ways around things, that we can try to fill those gaps and make sure that we can have sound legislation that's effective.
Madam Council President, we've already determined in the last 6 or so weeks that we need a lot of advice from now the acting law director, and as the law director for the county executive, clearly a lot of responsibility. How would you balance out your time between representing the administration and representing the council?
I think the good thing about the position, I'll be able to have a staff that will assist me. It's not a one-man operation, and I look to bring on qualified individuals who are experts in the various areas that we need to cover so that we will be able to adequately handle all the needs of the executive and all the needs of the council, because both are equally important.
Finally, Madam Council President, maybe it would be possible for a member of your staff to be exclusively at our disposal. We find that things move pretty quickly over here, and it would be helpful to have someone as close to full-time as possible.
Okay.
Do you have any response to that?
I have no objection to that.
Thank you, Mr. Clifford. Thank you.
Mr. Miller?
Madam President, thank you very much, and to Mr. Clifford, thank you for offering your services as the county's first law director, and I'd like to follow up on some excellent questions asked by my colleagues, both Mr. Schron and Mr. Brady. The council and the executive, I think, have gotten off to a very good start and are working very well together, and in cooperation we're putting this new government forward. But even under the very best of relationships, there's going to be some areas where it's not clear where the authority of the executive ends and where the authority of the council begins, and you're put in the ticklish position of having to represent both the executive and the county council, and the question is how do you think you could be helpful in resolving situations where questions arise over what are the powers of the executive and what are the powers of the council?
Thank you. That's a very good question. There is always a likelihood that there's going to be some ambiguity and some conflict. And I believe that if our staff looks at both sides of the issues, we can come up with an objective analysis and opinion as to how a particular issue should fall. And I would hope that we would be able to sit down and work together to negotiate any compromise necessary so that we could move forward to everyone's satisfaction.
Madam President, to Mr. Clifford, what is your and the administration's outlook on what the size and the composition of the staff of the law department ought to be?
Well, I can't speak for the administration at this point because we have not delved into that, as I've not taken the position yet. But in looking at the work study report that described the various areas of responsibility of the law director, it appears to be about 7 areas that need to be covered. And I would think that we would have at least one individual that would be assigned to each one of those areas, along with necessary support staff to keep the office functioning efficiently.
Madam President, last question in this round, and you know, when I was a legislator, we had
You still are a legislator.
When I was in the Ohio legislature.
Okay. You've been in many legislative branches there. So.
Right. We had an entity called the Legislative Service Commission, a nonprofit, a nonpartisan organization that where you had an idea for legislation, you would go to the Legislative Service Commission. You'd say that I have in mind to write legislation with the following basic provisions, and you'd give them the basic ideas, and they would do the writing into legislative form, and we obviously don't have anything like that here, and it's clear to me that the council is going to need help in drafting legislation, and my question is whether it would be your intent to have one or more persons on your staff that would be have the necessary skills and specifically be available to assist the council in drafting legislation.
Yes, absolutely. I think it would be absolutely necessary to have at least one, probably more than one, really dealing with that issue, because we don't want things to get backlogged waiting for legislation to be drafted. When things are needed to be ready for you, we want to be able to serve you effectively and have the legislation ready. So that requires putting the resources necessary to be able to handle that assignment.
Okay.
Madam President? Just for a point
Mr. Fitzgerald.
Thank you, ma'am. Just for point of information for the council, because some questions have been asked about staffing levels, and Mr. Clifford, since he isn't here yet, there's some things that he may not even be aware of in terms of what our current staffing levels are and what our intentions have been so far. We've identified there's about 6 lawyers right now that we're already working for the county in various capacities. So, for instance, there is a full-time lawyer, a gentleman by the name of Chris Russ, who is handling all kinds of legal issues over in the underneath the sheriff's department. There was another attorney who just recently resigned, who was handling various contractual matters for the Engineers Association, but that position still exists. There are several individuals, including Mr. Morales, who you've gotten to know, who've been dealing with previously have been dealing with some employment issues. The only individual that we've brought in since my taking office was Nora Hurley, who I think some of you, if not all of you, have had an opportunity to meet, who is my law director in the city of Lakewood. And I would just mention that she has about a decade's worth of experience in terms of actually drafting legislation on a municipal level, and also dealing as an assistant attorney general, where she was helping to interpret and reconcile state statutes with local statutes. I think that, and as Mr. Clifford and I have discussed this, and I chose him for all of his own extraordinary qualities and qualifications, but there's also an understanding, as he said, that no one person can do it all, and we're committed to making sure that he has a team of people that can assist him in all of the myriad functions of a law department, and also to make sure that the council never feels that they are shorthanded in terms of legal expertise, either from Mr. Clifford directly or from any of his deputies. My anticipation is that Ms. Hurley is going to be kind of the chief deputy, and I think she complements Mr. Clifford's strengths in that she has been more narrowly focused, though she does not have his experience in dealing with larger government administration issues, which are going to be a big part of what he's going to help us deal with, but has more narrowly focused experience in the area of legislation and drafting of legislation. So I just thought that information might be helpful to the council. Thank you, ma'am.
All right, thank you. Mr. Greenspan?
Thank you, Madam President. Mr. Clifford, thank you for being here today. Moving beyond the broad language of the charter as far as the minimum qualifications of serving and representing or providing advice, we now have to look at the totality of the roles and responsibilities of the law director. Earlier you gave testimony, or you gave, not testimony, but in your opening statement, you said that many of your colleagues have either been or have experience as being a law director or an assistant law director, but you answered Councilmember Schron's question stating that you've never been or held any one of those positions, correct?
Well, I have been a prosecutor.
But you've not been a law director?
I have not been a law director, no, sir.
Okay, and then further you gave, you answered the questions that you've not written legislation, either ordinances or resolutions, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, have you, what is your length of or your experience in negotiating human resource, legal matters, labor matters, or contract negotiations? Because we've seen already in the 6 weeks we've been we've been here that our director of law, our acting director of law, has been engaged in those types of legal matters. I think it's important to have staff that can support you as the law director in addressing these issues. However, there will be opportunities where the law director personally will need to address these issues. I think it's important for us to understand your background and experience with human resources, labor, and contract negotiations.
Well, my work in human resources have been in dealing with staff issues with the court, grievance proceedings. I've dealt with issues of negotiating with staff at the East Cleveland Public Library and drafting contracts for the library, but not so much as the court, because we're not in the preparation stage, we're in the interpretation stage of the contract. So I'm familiar with the contracts, I'm familiar with contract terminology and effectiveness of contracts, and how one word can make a big difference in how a contract is interpreted and enforced.
Okay, and I just have one. I believe I don't know
You
where
had
I'm.
two more.
I don't know where I'm on my questions.
Number one.
I have just one left, but I think you answered it. So you are not a member of the Cuyahoga County Law Directors Association.
No, I'm not a law director yet.
All right, thank you. I have no further questions at this time.
Mr. Rogers.
Thank you, Madam President. Good morning, Mr. Clifford.
Good morning.
Congratulations on being appointed by the executive to this position.
Thank you.
I just want to hear you talk a little bit about what you feel is most appealing about this position that would lead you to leave the magistrate's office.
Well, thank you. That's a great question. Most appealing about this is the opportunity to be in on the ground level as Cuyahoga County's new government gets established, and being able to provide leadership in structuring a government that is credible and accountable and above reproach, setting up a system that can be used as a model for others to consider in the future.
Thank you. And Madam President, Mr. Clifford, does the Chief Magistrate, do you have your own budget?
I do have a budget, but it's merged into the court's budget. Most of my budget is in staffing. Other than that, we have a budget for our legal research, our Westlaw and our books, and our supplies.
Okay.
Oh, and also, we also have our travel and training budget, but, pretty much the judges allow us adequate resources to get the job done.
Okay. And Madam President, I have one more question. Mr. Clifford, there's been a lot of discussion over the past few weeks between the roles and responsibilities and the lines of delineation between the county prosecutor and the law director. And I'm wondering if you've given those roles and responsibilities much consideration, and if so, where do you see the lines and where do you see the role as the law director versus the role of the county prosecutor?
I see the role of the law director to serve the needs of the county executive and the county council. The prosecutor appears to have some overlap from the previous structure under the Ohio Revised Code. I believe that we need to continue to work with the county prosecutor to try to get some clear definition as to what was the intent of the new charter and how it should function and how the roles should handle certain responsibilities.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you. Great, Mr. Manna?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Clifford, let me just tell you that your opening statement talking about being a Bobcat, I graduated from Ohio University in '68 and started off as an insurance man. So, hey, you're on a roll. You worked as a swimming instructor, lifeguard. 3 out of my 4 kids, as they were going through college, did the same thing. Of course, they couldn't do it with the city because I was president of the council, so they had to get a job with Metro Parks. But I'm on your side.
Thank you.
We're coming from with a lot of those same coincidences in our own history. I was a little bit concerned, as I heard, your testimony and some of these previous questions about you're extremely qualified having anything to do with the courts. I mean, that is, boy, if this was court administration and so on and so forth, phenomenal. But, going to the transition report, they talked about the areas that the law director is going to be responsible for. And just to read some points, they're talking about, of course, now we've talked about legislation, so don't even need to answer that part. But it's talking about financial government bonds and economic development, real estate and environmental law, civil litigation, and public safety and law enforcement, and of course, justice affairs. You're very, very qualified. I'm just wondering, on those other areas, any experience whatsoever on some of these other things?
Well, civil litigation, I have experience. As far as those financial matters, no, I haven't. I've never been bond counsel. I haven't had any experience dealing with things like that. But I'm up to the challenge to learn and to be able to provide what the county needs.
Madam Chair, as I was listening to the testimony and listening to some of the questions of my colleagues, I was just kind of reviewing in my mind what we recently considered when we were appointing Bonnie T1, where, the controversy was she wasn't a surveyor, but she was an engineer. Mm-hmm. And she had the ability to manage public works. And so then I was then thought about the situation we're in, as a starting government with the county prosecutor, Bill Mason. And, prior to this government, Bill Mason was the prosecutor, chief law director, even though he didn't have that title. But as the executive said, he didn't personally give legal opinions. He had people doing that. He didn't personally do contracts. He had people doing that. So I think this law department really is not the amount of specialists that you will need is really not a growth item, but a transfer. Because certainly the prosecutor and the law director wouldn't need duplication. So I'm not too concerned about that. So what I'm saying is, I think your supervision and your ability to administrate is very important, and much like the law director, you don't have to be all things to all people. So do you care to respond to that question?
I agree wholeheartedly.
That comment.
I believe that to be the law director, you have the responsibility to administer the law department and having adequate resources to address all the issues before you. And I believe that I can manage attorneys to do the job to serve the needs of the county.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Mr. Gallagher.
Welcome, Mr. Clifford. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Having been in the courts for over 30 years, I call a lot of my friends and I talk to some judges, and I can report to you that I can't find anyone that doesn't like you. And I can't find anyone that doesn't respect the work that you've done. Having said that, moving forward, sometimes we find ourselves, especially this council and Mr. Fitzgerald, as we wade into the lagoon of the new Cuyahoga County, we have that big crocodile called the charter sitting out there. And every time we get our hands around it and we think we've wrestled it, it goes into a death spiral and throws us off. And I think that's where we happen to be with you. Regarding the 5 years experience advising or representing public political subdivisions, plural, I think we can drop the plural part of that too. This is a document that we have struggled with mightily, I think, as you may or may not know. It would seem to me that you fall short on the 5 years as far as the advisement. But the problem that I find myself in, or the predicament I find myself in, is almost the same thing we had with Ms. Tewan. You're a little bit different. She's an advisor. She's structured as the public works director and happens to be an engineer and will oversee the engineers that will have the qualifications underneath. You will be the law director. And it seems almost upside down that you will most likely than not have people, in my opinion, more qualified than you working underneath you. And
I would hope all my people were more qualified than me.
Well, I would hope not. I want you to be the boss. I want you to be.
I'll be the boss.
But it just seems, and that's nothing against you. It seems to me that's the document that we're given, and it's a struggle that I personally have. That just a comment. You don't have to talk about that. Having Judge Adrian here, you couldn't have had a more respected person. I think I respect him as a judge more than any judge that I've ever had the pleasure of dealing with. John T. Corrigan, as you said, certainly is an icon. And I almost drowned trying to get a WSI, so you're way ahead of me on that one. I'm going to give you a scenario that's come up. We got a legal opinion from you, and we're a little uncomfortable with that. So we go to the prosecutor, and he agrees with you. We're still a little uncomfortable with that. Where do we go?
I believe you will have the right, if necessary, to hire outside counsel according to state law.
Well, as it stands, we would get recommendations from the prosecutor who we just disagreed with. Do you think that's fair and equitable as far as a independent body such as this council?
Well, the council needs to be independent, but I think council should also trust the advice and counsel of its attorneys.
But we just disagreed with them. Well, and this is a situation that may never come up.
Well, it could very easily come up. Whenever we have lawyers, there's always room for various sides, but if you can get two lawyers to agree on something, you probably have something that you can lay your hat on. I would think that if you don't like the opinion, I mean, you can delve into it deeper and try to get independent decision contrary, but I think that if you get the law director and the prosecutor both agreeing on one particular perspective, that you've got a good, honest, objective opinion.
I kind of look at it as someone coming through, say, the municipal court, getting a decision, goes to the appeals court, who agrees with the municipal court judge. He goes to Supreme Court, and they overturn it 7-0. I'm looking at the 7-0 situation. Boy, all the way along, we didn't get a good opinion in that lower court or the appeals court, but the Supreme Court turned it around. And I'm looking at a situation, granted, probably will never occur, but I really think, and you're standing by, that we should trust the prosecutor and his individual choices as far as who we can hire to represent us or to give us a legal opinion. I'm just a little uncomfortable with that.
Oh, I understand that, and I think that if it's necessary to hire outside counsel, that you should have say-so in who you hire and not just take the prosecutor's recommendation of who to bring on.
Oh, then that's what I was looking for that. Thank you.
Madam President?
Yes.
Just one quick note that the council may be interested in. Before I nominated Mr. Clifford, I reviewed the provisions of the charter. I felt that he met them as far as the qualifications, but I didn't just rely on my own opinion. I actually asked for an outside legal opinion. And I asked for an outside legal opinion because I didn't want. First of all, we only have a law department kind of in infancy, and I thought we would get a more objective opinion if we asked for an outside legal opinion as to whether or not Mr. Clifford met the charter requirement. So I asked the law firm of Squire Sanders to render an opinion, and not only did they find that his service, not just as a magistrate, but also providing advice and counsel as the chief magistrate and assisting in all those administrative issues with the judges that he works for, that qualified. And not only did Squire Sanders believe, their opinion state that they believe that he did mean it, they didn't particularly believe it was a close call. I know that, and I thought that counsel would have already been provided that, but you will be provided that opinion today immediately after that meeting, so you can have it for your consideration. It's not binding on you, and you're certainly welcome to get your own opinion, but that was one opinion that helped inform my judgment that I believe Mr. Clifford meets the charter requirement.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Did you have a follow-up, Mr. Geller?
Follow-up to that. My concern is not with you. My concern is with the charter and what it says, and we've run headlong into this numerous times. To take this for what it is right now, if say our assistant or our interim law director were sitting there who has served us ably and fantastically, I think as it stands right now, he wouldn't be qualified. I don't think you've been a law director before, have you?
No, I have not been a law director before.
So it seems to have pigeonholed us, as the way I read it. But I'll look forward to the opinion.
Madam President?
Yes, Mr. Morales.
To Councilmember Gallagher, the charter does not require that the law director have been a law director. It requires that the individual who's serving in the position have 5 years of experience advising or representing political subdivisions of the state of Ohio. And my understanding is that it is clear that the nominee, Mr. Clifford, has certainly advised the municipal court in his capacity as administrative judge for well over 5 years.
Correct. And taking that, then any magistrate in the state of Ohio would be qualified.
No, sir. It wouldn't be any magistrate. Forgive me. It would be in his capacity as the lead magistrate, as the administrative magistrate. He has special responsibility in that regard. So that position, as you are aware, as having worked for a court, has a special role in the court. And in that capacity, I believe that his experience qualifies him under the charter.
I'll look forward to. I didn't read the opinion, but as I said, the way I read this, and I'm not an attorney, but it just seemed to me that it kind of boxed us in, and maybe we're not. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Schrein.
Thank you, Madam President. And I, too, wanted to follow up on that because it's the document to which, as I think Judge Gross indicated earlier, you're a stickler for the rules.
Yes.
And to me, one of the problems that I have is this rule, to me, seems to say that the purpose of that is to somebody who is advising and or representing the subdivision of the state of Ohio. To Mr. Gallagher's question, there's nothing in here about supervising the magistrate. So under his definition and yours, I don't know how you could come up with any other thing that every magistrate who provides advising or representing would fall into this. Ms. Morales, on that definition. But I would like to come back to what is your definition of a political subdivision for purposes of this?
A political subdivision is an entity of government lesser than the state.
So any judge's provision where you're providing advice to that judge in a supportive role would qualify?
Well, the judges of the court would constitute a political subdivision.
Okay, and the spirit of the way this is written, would you interpret that was the spirit of when this was put together, or was it to include, and I guess I'm putting my color on it, the environmental issues, the financial issues, all of those things that go into litigation, legislation, all those things that would form the basis for this law director position is what they were looking for when whoever it was that put together this language.
Well,
you appear to have one of those elements, but not the breadth to which I know at some point the county executive and we are going to be responsible for having somebody giving advice on that myriad of items.
Right. I believe that in taking the view of the plain language of what the drafters put in the charter, that we're not looking at all of the narrow possibilities. We're looking at the broad language. If they wanted it to be more narrow, they could have added additional language in it to more narrowly define specifically that a person had to have specific qualifications or specific experience. But I believe that the language as written is broad enough to be more encompassing, to include, because they didn't say advise and represent, it's advise or represent, just to make it more broad, to open up the field so that you could get the best candidate for the position.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. I don't want to belabor this point, Mr. Clifford, on advising or representing. However, I do have a question in the way it's written, and since the charter review falls under my committee, I've made a note to more narrowly define this provision when we go through the charter review process. Advising or representing, and this maybe I'm looking at Mr. Morales for clarification, might in 5 years Mr. Nanny, as our Chief of Staff, have served in the capacity of advising a political subdivision?
Madam Chair, to Councilmember Greenspan, Mr. Nanny is not an attorney.
If he was an attorney, though, would his role as Chief of Staff, or would the county executive's director, Chief of Staff, be qualified to serve because he served? Is his role considering advising?
Madam Chair, to Councilmember Greenspan, if he was acting in the capacity of an attorney representing this council, the answer is most certainly yes.
Okay, thank you. Just a general observation. I'm kind of moving beyond the provisions, the broad provisions of the charter, and I'm looking to and I'm asking questions focusing on the job as I perceive it to be. And so I want you to understand that my questions now are moving beyond that, assuming the charter and taking it for what it is and where we are here today. I look forward to that letter, however, from the attorneys clarifying the language so when we go through a charter review, we have that available to us. I have no other questions right now.
All right, there any other questions? Mr. Jones?
Madam President, to Mr. Clifford, again, congratulations for getting to this point.
Thank you.
Many of the questions have been asked, but I want to make a comment and then a question. As Councilman Jemana mentioned, we had some issues or dialogue about the Public Works Director and her lack of a dual license and those gray areas. I'm a funeral director, and I have one license, a funeral director's license, and not the dual license of an embalmer. Okay, I have helped build my family's establishment over 20 years, and I was highly recruited by my father. And he felt I was eminently qualified, regardless of the lack of my dual license. So I have an opinion from him in regards to that. And I am very happy in the position that I've had over these last 20 years. And all of those little questions really didn't matter too much. So I just simply ask you, tell us some of the strengths you feel you bring to this position.
I believe my strengths are in working with people. I've been working in the public sector for a long time, dealing with the issues of people in our community, dealing with members of the court, my staff, the practicing bar, and having served on many committees and many boards throughout the community, I've developed a good network of contacts and associations. I manage a staff attorneys, which is not an easy job when you're dealing with individuals who are type A personalities with big egos and wanting to necessarily do things as they think is the way to do it, and sometimes wanting to lead and not always wanting to follow and be a team player. But I believe that I've been effective in maintaining a good working relationship with the staff and keeping things moving forward to keep our mission as the focus of why we do what we do and to do the job effectively.
Thank you.
Mr. Clifford, why don't you tell us how many magistrates work under you?
We have 18 magistrates.
Are they all full-time now, or are they some part-time?
I've got one part-time right now who retired and was able to come back on our retire-rehire program part-time for 3 years.
All right, are there any other questions? All right, is there a motion? Mr. Miller?
Madam President, I feel that Mr. Clifford has many years of legal experience and is very well qualified. And there could be some dispute made about the charter provision, but my experience, which has served me well over many years, is that whenever there's a close call to support the administration, and when they seem to be clearly in the wrong, well, that's when you speak up. And I think that this is, it's at least a close call. And so for these reasons, I would move that we refer the matter of the confirmation of Mr. Clifford to the full council for approval.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any comment or discussion? Mr. Greenspan?
Yeah, I would ask that the motion be changed not for approval but for consideration.
Yeah, that's what the practice has been before, was a motion for referral to the entire council for consideration for confirmation.
Madam President, that was my intent.
All right. Mr. Schrein.
Madam President, I would ask that we table this, the vote, until we get the readings and the letter from the Squires, so that we know what this question specifically before us, so we can have a better understanding. And if we get to potentially a disagreement as to what that means, Squires is not an authority that within our channel, other than has been hired by the executive. Perhaps we would want, this would be the place where we'd first test whether we have the ability to do exactly what Mr. Clifford has suggested, that we would perhaps go out and seek our own counsel to get our own independent determination, because we are establishing precedent for this body.
Well, I would just respond to say that the motion would only refer this for consideration. It doesn't bind any members to vote one way or another. It essentially concludes the hearing.
No, I understand that, but what this would do is this would allow the hearing to stay open as opposed to closing the hearing for gathering of the legal opinion before we would go ahead. In the past, what we've done is when we close the hearing and move on in, we immediately then move to a vote, and rather than put that before the body for the actual confirmation vote, this would allow us at least to keep the hearing open until such time as we had our opinions.
So this would do what we did with Mr. First, where there was some additional information, and we essentially continued the hearing, leaving it in progress.
Absolutely. It would be doing nothing different than we do with Mr. First.
You want to respond or comment on that, Mr. Greenspan?
Just, Madam President, what's the clock, the 30-day clock?
Oh, he was nominated on February the 9th.
So we have until March
I think
10th?
we would meet on the 7th.
10th or March 10th?
Okay.
And we meet on
We
the
meet on the 8th? Okay, so it would have to be prior to the 8th. Now, we do have a work session on this coming Monday at 4 o'clock. We could continue the hearing until that day. However, I would assume that Tuesday. But then Mr. Miller would have to withdraw his motion. Did you want to be heard, Mr. Germana?
All I asked was it be tabled, which means that the matter does not have to go forward, Madam President.
Madam Chair, I was just, I don't have Robert's rules in front of me, but I think when a motion to table is made, it gets second, it's not debatable, and we would vote to table or not. But
so do we need this is the
if there's no second, then we would vote on Mr.
All right, we have a second on the motion to table? All right, so it's been moved and seconded, so that means that we have to table it until date certain?
We need to vote.
Okay.
Shall we table it or not?
Okay.
Madam President?
Yes.
I believe the first of all, the motion's been changed, and the second did not reflect the original motion.
Right.
So that motion would either have to be seconded or that motion is invalid, and then we move to the motion the table.
I thought Mr. Miller had corrected his motion.
He did, but the second did not confirm.
All right, who's the second on Mr.
So if the second is withheld, then that motion dies for lack of second. Then the motion to the table becomes the motion which has been seconded.
And I did second the.
Let's call the roll on the amended motion. That would be to refer it to the refer it to council. This is the motion. This is my legal advisor. All right. Can you call the roll?
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Madam President?
Yes, Mr. Miller.
What exactly is the question that we're voting
All
on?
right. The motion then is whether or not the confirmation should move forward. That was your motion to refer it to the entire council for confirmation.
Madam President, as much as I would like my motion to pass, there was a motion made to table which was made and properly seconded.
Okay.
And rather than have a vote which could be somewhat divisive, I would be willing to withdraw my original motion if the seconder would be willing to do so as well, and then we could informally postpone it till we get the further information.
All right, so in other words, we'll just informally postpone it rather than vote on the motion to table. Is that agreeable to you?
Yeah, the motion to table becomes moot.
Okay, all right. So would be is Tuesday at 4 for the work session acceptable to all of the parties? Is that acceptable to you, Mr. Clifford?
That'd be fine.
And we can get the opinion? And Mr. Germana?
Madam Chair, before this hearing started today, I raised the question of, with the president coming in, I don't know what that timetable is. I don't know if that's going to affect, members of this council. Certainly, the executive will be affected.
Well, Obama called me, and I was going to be at the airport. I think since the traffic will be up at Cleveland State, I know Mr. Schrein had a possibility of being there. Did they give you a time, Mr. Schrein?
They did not give me a time, they didn't give me an actual slot. They were just venting my name as a possible person to be involved.
Call Obama and tell him that you can come another time or something.
Maybe more direct line.
Yeah, I think we should go ahead and set it for 4. If there is on Tuesday, if there's some it's a logistical problem, we can always change it. But I mean, the president's going to be up at Cleveland State. This shouldn't interfere with the traffic pattern, in this part of the city. And this is very similar to what we did with Mr. First, that we needed to continue to get some additional information. So this is not out of the ordinary. So if there be no further matters before this matter of the whole, Mr.
I'm assuming council won't need. I will be at Cleveland State, so I'm assuming council will not. Not that he's going to be looking for my advice, but I will be there anyway. So I'm assuming you won't need me there, but we'll have representatives here.
Okay. All right. Is there a motion to not adjourn, to continue this hearing till 4 o'clock on Tuesday, the 22nd?
So moved.
It's moved by Mr. Germana, second by Mr. Greenspan. All those, we call the roll? Or we can disagree?
Approving that motion. Ms. Simon is not here. Let the record reflect that she's absent at this time. Mr. Greenspan?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Brady is also absent at this time. Mr. Germana?
Yes.
Mr. Gallagher?
Yes.
Mr. Schron?
Yes.
Ms. Conwell? Yes. Mr. Jones? Yes. Ms. Conley?
Yes.
Mr. Rogers? Yes. Motion carries.
All right, we will see you on Tuesday.
Thank you.
All right. Please, for the record, these
Sure, yes, I do.